Hello and welcome to the Northwest Indiana Oilmen postgame show. I'm Brandon Pavlina, glad to be joined tonight by the color commentator from tonight's game, Joey Gelman. The final score here, West Indiana Oilmen won, so the Oilmen unable to come out on top here today against the DuPage County Hounds, the first place DuPage County Hounds, and now commandingly in the lead of the Midwest Collegiate League with a 4-game lead over the Northwest Indiana Oilmen. Joey, I'm going to start off the conversation here by asking you, what was your biggest takeaway from the ball game here this afternoon?
I think the biggest takeaway was the pitching. We had Trent Carrier on the mound here for the DuPage County Hounds, and usually serves as a position player for them because of his bat, and he showed that again today. With his bat, him and his brother really carrying the Carriers, carrying the offense. I know it's a bad pun, but it is what it was. And you had Keith Mailer on the mound for the Oilmen, who's the top-of-the-line ace, and you had Carrier, who could be probably a 4-starter, give or take, and he really shined today. 5 innings of work, 3 hits, no runs, 1 strikeout, 2 walks, and that was followed up by Kyle Saby and Zach Taylor really shutting the door down on this Oilman offense and what would have been a really big victory for the Oilmen. They started the game only 3 games out of the lead here. Could have made up some big-time ground with only around 2 weeks left in the season. Unfortunately, couldn't get it done. But the big story, even though the Hounds offense lived up to what it usually would live up to, the pitching really surprised at least me today, the fact that you had a lower-tier starter coming in here and really dominating the game.
Yeah, that's very true. Trent Carrier statistically on the season, we were talking about it before the game, an ERA up around the 6s. So, again, that's a guy that you want to be able to do some damage against, and the Oilmen offense just unable to do that here today. Again, Carrier's stat line, 5 innings, only 3 hits allowed, and walked 2 as well, so averaged only just 1 base runner per inning. So the Oilmen really unable to string any offense together here today. And then, like you said, Kyle Saby, he went 3 innings strong. He surrendered the 1 run on the day that the Oilmen were able to get offensively. So his line, 3 innings, 1 run, 1 earned, and 1 strikeout to go along with 3 hits as well. Zach Taylor, the final inning here, he went 1 inning and struck out 1 batter, but was able to close the door on this ball game. Again, as the Hounds tallied 2 more runs in the top of the 9th inning to grow their lead to 4 runs, and the Oilmen were just never able to get anything going offensively. And that's been the story of late. The Oilmen in the past week have played better baseball than they had previously, but today they looked like the team of 2 weeks prior where their offense was just mightily struggling. And again, they were really unable to do a whole lot here today against the pitching that the DuPage County Hounds put out there. And like you said, Keith Mailer, a big-time name for the Northwest Indiana Oilmen. He had a solid outing. Just the Hounds were able to string together hits well enough to be able to, manufacture the runs that they needed. Keith Mailer went 7 innings. He allowed 8 hits, 3 runs, but only 2 of them were earned. An error allowed 1 runner to reach base early, but he struck out 2 batters as well. So again, only 3 runs in 7 innings for Mailer. That's a pretty good day, but when your offense can't really get a whole lot going, that makes it all that more difficult. Yelnick on in relief for 1 inning. He surrendered 2 hits, had no strikeouts. And then Christian Sullivan, the reliever in the 9th inning, only 1 inning of duty, but he did surrender 2 runs on 2 hits and 1 walk. So Oilman bullpen, at least with Sullivan, not as strong as you would like to have seen it here today, trying to hold the lead to only 2 runs late. But again, the Hounds able to manufacture some runs in the 9th inning and put the Oilmen away handily. So that's really gonna tell the story of the ballgame. The pitching here was key for both teams, whether it be Mailer surrendering 3 runs on the day, although 2 of them were earned, 1 unearned run. But Carrier, again, Saby and Taylor all just had tremendous days on the mound for the DuPage County Hounds. You look at the stat line for the Oilmen today, just 1 hit down the board for a handful of guys. The Oilmen able to tally only 6 hits on the game here today, and we're fortunate to be able to score the 1 run that they did, as it was driven in by a fielder's choice that Donovan Chandler was able to fortunately beat out and not allow the Hounds to turn the double play. But again, the Oilmen offense here today just really struggling, and it was apparent. And again, the Hounds pitching was just very dominant.
Yeah, Brandon and I mentioned it during the broadcast. The tone was kind of set for this ball game early on in the first inning. You had Strozinski for the Oilmen get a double to start off the game in his leadoff position, and then on a fly ball to center field, tests the arm of Joe Duncan, caught trying to advance to third, and it really squandered a big chance for the Oilmen to get a run across early because Mailer had a pretty good inning starting off that ball game, and then you had the Oilmen in scoring position really quickly right afterwards. Unfortunately for them, couldn't get it across, and then that spiraled down into a lot of missed opportunities where Strozinski was picked off again in the third inning. Just a couple blunders on the base paths and really not able to get momentum. And we saw it a lot last year where the pitching really dominated for the Oilmen and the offense wasn't there. And I wouldn't say the pitching was dominant today, but it was good enough. If you ever started going 7 innings and gives it 3 runs, like you said, only 2 earned?
Yeah.
Correct? That should be enough for your offense to come back around and at least keep you in the ball game. And it didn't work today. The bats went silent, and maybe a much-needed off day in store tomorrow before they take on the Vikings on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you were saying Tyler Strozinski in the first inning, a leadoff double to start the ball game. And again, he tried to advance on a ball hit to the center fielder, and it wasn't very deep. And
not at all.
I was very surprised to see Strozinski test the arm of the center fielder, Joe Duncan, in that situation, especially the Oilmen having an early scoring opportunity. But Strozinski does have some very blinding speed. He's very quick, but in that situation, you need to be a little bit smarter than that and not be necessarily as aggressive in that situation, knowing that a base hit when you're on second base will score you regardless because of your speed, and not necessarily use it in the aspect of just trying to advance one base in that situation. Because again, you have Brad Wood, Belmonte. Well, actually, Brad Wood, I believe, had the fly out. But you have Belmonte, Fred Smart, Joe Jumonville to follow. All 3 of those guys are tremendous hitters. And like I said, all you need to do for Strozinski when he's on second base is get a single, and most likely you'll be able to drive him in, just put it to the outfield, because with his speed, he can get from second base to home plate in the blink of an eye. So Strozinski just being a little too aggressive. And like you said, it set the tone for the game here today. As again, the Oilmen were not really able to produce a whole lot of scoring opportunities throughout the course of the ball game. They just didn't get any. They didn't string hits together. They didn't get walked too frequently. Only 2 walks on the day for the Oilmen batters. So they just didn't have the base runners to be able to manufacture runs the way that they probably would have liked to and play a little small ball that they're accustomed to doing. So that's pretty much the tail of the tape here for this ball game. Although I believe tail of the tape is like a pre-game thing. It's a fighting term, but we'll call it what it is. Yeah, we'll call it what it is. 5-1, the final score. DuPage able to topple over the Oilmen here on Bark at the Park Day at Oil City Stadium. Joey, what else? You got anything else?
I just think it was a much-needed game for the Oilmen to win here, and they really didn't put enough together to come through. And you want to say the effort was there, but offensively, they just looked kind of lost. And it's surprising because just the nature of who was out there on the mound for the Hounds, you didn't think that would be the case, but they came around and showed you why they're in first place and why they've strung a lot of win streaks together this year and quieted the Oilmen bats, a sign you don't want to see heading into the last 2 weeks when you're trying to fight for playoff position and make sure you're in the spot you can control your own destiny going down the stretch in August. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. A big game against Southland on Tuesday to try to maybe see if the Oilmen could get back in their winning ways and go from there. You wanted to build off today, you didn't. You take the off day tomorrow, and then you regroup Tuesday and see if you can restart this whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, with a guy like Trent Carrier starting the ball game, like we said, his ERA pretty high in the 5s and 6s. I believe it was over 6 actually. Again, a guy that you would think most days you would be able to get some scoring chances off of, but the Oilmen, when they got them, squandered them at times and just weren't able to get a whole lot going here today. Again, the final score, the DuPage County Hounds 5 and the Northwest Indiana Oilmen 1. But again, yeah, the pitching just really was able to put the close on the Oilmen in the last, with this 9-inning game today, and I believe they played they had 7 at-bats in the game prior, yesterday being canceled, but the doubleheader on Friday. they now have only scored 2 runs in about 16 innings. So their offense coming up a little short over the course of the last 2 ball games. So that's something that the Oilmen are going to need to look to, work on, going into the late half of the season here. They need to be able to score some runs going into the postseason and, not necessarily rely on your starters to, carry the team all the way through, although the Oilmen pitching staff has been strong all year long. So I'm anticipating seeing some good starts. Again, Mailer did give you a quality start here today. Again, 7 innings, only 2 earned runs, 3 runs total. But that's a good outing. And again, on many other days, that's going to be able to be enough to get your team a win. Just today, the Oilmen offense not able to make that happen. So I think that's going to do it for us here on the Northwest Indiana Oilmen postgame show. I'm Brandon Pavlina. Again, glad to be joined here today by Joey Gelman, who was the color commentator from tonight's game. Him and Brandon do a tremendous job. Got great chemistry going up in the booth here today. We would have liked to have seen an Oilmen victory, but you can't win them all. And the Oilmen, again, the final score for you one more time, falling here today to the DuPage County Hounds. The Hounds 5 and the Oilmen 1. All right, that's going to do it for us here. I'm Brandon Pavlina. Thank you for listening on the Oilmen Radio Network.